So you open your computer, click on your inbox, and there it is, right? That message from a client that stops you in your tracks. Something about the subject line or the tone immediately clues you in, and you know that something feels off, right? Maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're disappointed, maybe they're outright accusing you of something that, from your side, went completely by the book. Or maybe they're right. Maybe you did miss something. Maybe you made a mistake. Either way, you get that message and your stomach just drops. And now you're left figuring out not just how to fix the issue, but how to hold on to your professionalism, your boundaries, and your confidence while you do it. Today, I'm going to be talking about what to do in those moments when a client is clearly upset or accusatory or being just plain difficult, and how to navigate those situations with calm, clarity, and grace, whether the problem is theirs or yours. So let's get into it. Welcome to This Can't Be That Hard. My name is Anami Tonkin, and I help photographers run profitable, sustainable businesses that they love. Each week on the podcast, I cover simple, actionable strategies and systems that photographers at every level of experience can use to earn more money in a more sustainable way. Running a photography business doesn't have to be that hard. You can do it, and I can show you how. One of the most important things that I've learned, especially when you are in a busy season in your business, is this. When a client sends a message that feels, sharp or disappointed or just kind of intense, 9 times out of 10, it's not really about me. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm never at fault, obviously. I have definitely made mistakes in my business. We all have. But especially during the busy season, right? When people are juggling crazy schedules, when they're stressed about money, when the holidays are breathing down all of our necks, that tension tends to leak out and spill over, right? Sometimes it leaks out into their communication with you. That tension, it has to go somewhere. And sometimes it sort of spills over directly into your lap, right? It shows up in the way that they treat you. So when you get that message that says, I'm really upset, or I'm super disappointed, I haven't received my gallery, or there were fewer images than I thought there were going to be, or, these don't look like what I was expecting. It is so easy to jump straight into panic mode, to start questioning yourself, to start apologizing all over the place. But I want to offer a quick phrase that you can use in those moments to give yourself a little emotional breathing room. And this is not something that you say to them. This is something that you just say to yourself. And that is, this is not about me as a person. This is about a situation, right? That one sentence has saved me so many times in my business, not even just in the hard times, sometimes in the good times too. It's important to remember when we are running one-person businesses that although everything feels personal, from the outside, people are just looking for the product that they, wanted in the first place. And sometimes if things go awry, or if they're just having a bad time in their lives, that can come back and feel like a personal attack on you. But when you can shift out of that I'm being attacked mode and into this person is stressed and I, in some way have something to contribute to that situation, it becomes so much easier to respond calmly, effectively, and with empathy. And this is not the first time that I have talked about this on the podcast because it's a super important topic. And if you're listening to this and feeling like, this sounds kind of familiar, I feel like she's talked about this before, that's correct. This is an important topic, and it has come up more than once over the 5+ years that we've been doing the podcast. But again, that is because this is important. It's important to be prepared for. It's important to remind yourself of. It's important to be able to find when you need to reference back to it because you're having one of these moments. One of my favorite episodes on this topic was an interview I did back in episode 230 with Melody McDonald, who is a full-time photographer who has recently retired from her career as a 911 dispatcher. And she came on the show to talk about how to stay calm when everyone else is panicking. And it was such a fun conversation. It was so memorable because it is also really useful to remind ourselves that this work isn't typically a life and death situation, right? But sometimes the emotional intensity can feel really similar. And those of us who are able to navigate those situations the best aren't the ones who shut down or get defensive or, turn to Facebook groups to rant about some difficult client. They are the ones who can stay grounded and move the conversation forward. So once you've taken that breath, let your adrenaline kind of ebb and flow. Once you've reminded yourself that this isn't a personal attack or a life or death, matter of life or death, it's just a stressful moment, the next step is figuring out how to respond. And this is super, super important, right? Number one, you respond with empathy. Empathy comes first, solutions come second. I know that sounds a little, fluffy when what you really want to say is, this isn't my fault, or here, it's in the contract that you signed. But the thing is that jumping straight into problem solving or policy quoting doesn't work if someone is still in panic mode or if someone is really frustrated. Instead, lead with something like, I completely understand how stressful it is trying to get everything ready in time for the holidays, especially when you're, juggling cards and gifts and family, the whole thing. That one sentence doesn't take any blame. It doesn't say, oh, this is my fault. Everything is free. I'm going to be sending you a refund. But it does show that you see them, you recognize their frustration, and you are willing to have a conversation about it. And people are so much more open to having that dialogue when they feel like they are being understood. So from there, you can calmly explain the options. And, this is where your boundaries come in. So let's say that a client is pushing for, their full gallery a week after the session because the holiday cards are on sale, right? And they want to get them ordered by tomorrow. You don't have to say, absolutely not. That's not how I work. You can say that. You might want to say it differently. You could say something like, I'd love to help you out. While I can't get the full gallery ready until whatever your normal turnaround time is, I can absolutely send over 3 images by Wednesday that I think might be good for helping, get your cards ordered. Or if you happen to offer rush fees and have like a set fee associated with that, you could say, I do offer expedited editing for a small fee. I can prioritize your gallery, blah, blah, blah. I can send over an invoice. Either way, you are offering support, but doing so within the structure of your business, right? You're not turning yourself inside out to meet some sort of last minute demand that wasn't part of the initial contract. The key here is staying warm, direct, and clear. And again, leading with empathy. Because when you model calm communication, you 9 times out of 10 are going to have a client who mirrors that back to you. But it is really important to make sure that you are maintaining boundaries here, because offering options and staying flexible is one thing, but feeling like you have to say yes to keep a client happy is something else entirely. And I want to spend a minute here because I really know how tempting it is to over-deliver, especially when a client is upset. You think, I'm just going to make this better by giving them extra or refunding something, whatever. If I get them to calm down, that's going to smooth things over. And maybe it does for a minute. But here's the cost, right? Every time you stretch your boundaries to make someone else happy, you are teaching not only them, but yourself that your limits don't matter. And over time, that is what leads to burnout. I have done it. I have stayed up late editing galleries I had no business touching that night. I've answered emails on weekends when I was supposed to be taking time off. I've said yes to requests that I knew had all the red flags. All of these things were in the name of good service, right? But guess what? It never actually feels good. So here's the reframe that I want you to think about. Boundaries aren't about being rigid. They are about being sustainable. You can care very deeply about your clients and still say, I want to make sure that you get the best version of your photos, and that takes time. Here's what I can offer within your deadline. Or I completely understand wanting these quickly. My standard turnaround time is X, and if I can get them to you any sooner, I absolutely will. When you communicate like that, clearly and confidently, you're not being cold, you're being professional. And people really respond to that. One thing that's helped me tremendously is putting these boundaries into writing before things go sideways. Things like turnaround time, office hours, retouching policies, what to expect in a gallery, all of those things hopefully should be scattered among your contract. Anything having to do with money and timelines and all that should be in your contract. But the softer things that people get upset about, make sure that those are showing up everywhere in your email templates, in your proposal, in your prep guides. Like, you can kind of sprinkle those things around to set expectations, because when emotions are running high, it's a whole lot easier to say, here's what we agreed to, and I am committed to upholding that promise. That way, you're not making things up as you go. You're not scrambling to justify yourself. You're just referencing back to the clear expectations that you set from day one. Now, most client conflicts can be resolved with good communication, with empathy, and with good boundaries. But every now and then, there is a situation where you really do have to draw a hard line. So maybe it's somebody who is just consistently disrespecting your time. Maybe they're ignoring your policies, or they're sending, demanding messages at all hours. If someone is treating you like a customer service rep that they can beat up on instead of the professional that you are, I want to say this really, really clearly. It is okay to walk away. You are allowed to say, this isn't working, or I'm sorry, but I am no longer the right photographer for this job. It doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you're being dramatic. It means you are protecting your business and your mental health. I recently had a situation like this where right after they booked, things started to get sticky, right? Every email had some kind of barb in it that would question my judgment, or, I know you say this in your prep guide, but this is how we're going to do it. And every time that they had a request, it kind of came in more like a demand. So by the time that we actually got together for the shoot, I was pretty confident that even if the photos were perfect, these clients weren't going to be happy. And sure enough, I delivered the gallery, the complaints started rolling in, and I just took a breath. I sort of stepped back for a few minutes, and I gave myself permission to stop trying to win them over. I addressed the concerns that they had professionally. I delivered what was promised, and then I kindly told them that this would be the end of our time together. And even though that was stressful, just because I am who I am and I have a hard time doing that, even 15 years into business, it was fine. That one difficult experience didn't ruin my business. It didn't ruin my life. In fact, it gave me the clarity to sort of firm up some of my policies and trust my gut earlier in the process the next time around. So I'm not saying that this is going to happen often. Hopefully, this does not happen often in your business. Again, good policies go a long way to making this happen less and less often over time, but it still will every once in a while creep up. And when it does, I want to remind you that you are allowed to choose peace over profit, right? One hard client does not define your career. So as we head into the busiest stretch of the year with packed calendars and tight deadlines and high emotions, I just want to remind you that stressful client moments are part of this job, but they don't have to derail you. When you can step back, recognize where the tension is really coming from, respond with empathy and clarity, and hold your boundaries with kindness and confidence, you protect more than just your business. You truly do protect your peace of mind. And honestly, that's what allows you to keep showing up and serving well, not just this season, but in the long haul. You've got this, my friends. I hope you have a great week. That's it for this week's episode of This Can't Be That Hard. I'll be back same time, same place next week. If you like the show, be sure to check out thiscan'tbethathard.com to explore all the resources we have for photographers. And of course, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a review of the show on iTunes or Spotify. As always, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic week.